You've probably noticed that the news is dominated lately with people who are seeking asylum at the US-Mexico border. Most are fleeing violence and persecution in their home countries, but they're being sent back into danger at the ports of entry. In the past couple of years, the US has reversed years of progress on asylum law, put thousands of lives at risk, and created a humanitarian crisis in another country. But this rollback of asylum law is not only affecting those seeking safety from Central America, but people around the world who have fled to the US for protection. Some people are even calling this new era the end of asylum in the United States.
A big story, new guidance at the border could mean thousands of asylum seekers are turned away without getting to see a judge.
Jeff Sessions this week said the U.S. will no longer grant asylum to victims who are fleeing domestic abuse or gang violence.
What we have right now in our southern border is equivalent to a modern-day Ellis Island.
The thing is, it's a complicated topic and a tough one to think about. But looking away from this humanitarian issue won't make it go away. In 2019, asylum seekers are going through unimaginable hardships. But it didn't used to be like this. After the Second World War left more than 60 million people displaced, the United Nations opened a path for asylum in Europe at the 1951 Refugee Convention. They also established what being a refugee meant, and defined it as anyone who can't stay in their home country because of a, quote, well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. In 1967, the UN's Refugee Protocol was expanded universally, and the United States signed on to it. But it wasn't until 1980 that the US officially passed the Refugee Act, which, quote, provided the first statutory basis for asylum in the US. That established that a person who claimed that well-founded fear of persecution that would qualify them as a refugee were also eligible for asylum. The only difference is an asylum claim is made while in the United States. Now, there are two paths towards asylum, affirmative and defensive. But the only thing you need to know is that they both require you to either be physically in the United States or at a port of entry to apply. That's exactly how the majority of people you've seen in your daily news feed are doing it, legally. It is hard to earn asylum in the United States, and through the years, it's become even harder. In 2018, only 35% of applicants were granted asylum, a historic low. But even getting to that approval or denial point is a long and complicated process under US law. This is how this process typically would have worked in most cases. So for example, if you found yourself in a life-threatening situation and need to flee your home country, you would first have to physically show up at, let's say, the US-Mexico border. You will then surrender yourself to a Customs and Border Protection officer and express to them your fear of returning to your home country. You'd have to pass a security screening and a credible fear interview before being given a court date in front of an immigration judge. After all that, you would either be released on parole or wait in a detention facility until that court date, where you have to provide evidence to support why you couldn't safely return to your home country. The government doesn't provide you with an attorney, but if you can afford one or can contact a pro bono attorney, you would have an advantage. The time in between your credible fear interview and your first day in court with the immigration judge used to take about 6 months. But now, it might take years before you even see the judge who will decide your fate. That's because the courts have had an extreme backlog of cases from a surge of applications. To give you an idea of how much it grew, in April 2017, the court backlog hit 585,000 cases. And by mid-2019, more than 850,000 cases were waiting to be heard by the courts. And there are less than 450 immigration judges to deal with them.
My administration is finalizing a plan to end the rampant abuse of our asylum system.
We need to reform our asylum laws to end the systemic abuse of our asylum system and stop fraud.
Since President Trump took office, his administration has implemented new standards that have changed the U.S. asylum system and who is eligible for protection. Here are a couple of instances where his administration's actions negatively impacted asylum seekers. In February 2017, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services made the credible fear interview stricter to pass for asylum seekers. This resulted in increased asylum denials right off the bat. A year after that, in April 2018, Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced the zero tolerance policy, which criminalized any migrant or asylum seeker for illegal entry, causing the separation of thousands of parents from their children.
I have put in place a zero tolerance policy for illegal entry on our southwest border. If you cross the border unlawfully, then we will prosecute you. If you are smuggling a child, then we will prosecute you.
Then, in September 2018, the Office of the Inspector General uncovered that asylum seekers were being turned away at ports of entry, and that officers were using a tactic called metering. This practice involved officers turning migrants away from the ports of entry and limiting the number of people eligible to apply for asylum. Migrants were told to jot their name down on a wait list in Mexico, which reached the thousands. Which brings us to this past January, and another Trump administration change to the asylum rules that has dominated headlines: migrant protection protocols. This policy is commonly known as Remain in Mexico, which returns migrants to Mexico to await their court proceedings. This decision has placed thousands of migrants from around the world at risk in border cities across Mexico. It's important to note that most asylum seekers trying to enter through the southern US-Mexico border specifically are from the Central American countries Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. The region is known for gang violence, corruption, and poverty, and most asylum seekers are fleeing life-threatening situations as a result. The Migrant Protection Protocol doesn't only make it even harder for migrants to seek legal representation, but it's making them miss their court dates that they would otherwise show up to. Some legal organizations say MPP is a violation of due process for both attorneys and asylum seekers. Most importantly, this policy puts thousands of vulnerable lives at risk. The UN estimates that there are more people displaced today than after World War II. An estimated 70 million people are fleeing their homes fearing conflict and persecution. Half of them are children. And we don't have to go as far as Yemen or South Sudan to help these people. Many of the displaced are stranded at our southern border. They're in enormous need of legal representation, safe shelter, and basic resources.